All right, guys, we're not on the road anymore. We're back here in Raleigh, and this is the proof right here as we're here at Lenovo Center. You see it behind us. Welcome home, Justin Gainey, as he's the new head coach at NC State here in Raleigh. And Pat, one thing I thought was very interesting, as soon as I pulled up here in the parking lot, it's like, whoa, there's a lot more people here than I expected.
Yeah, and that was a closed event.
It showed me how popular this guy is and how big of a choice this is for folks here at NC State to bring back one of their own.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a groundswell of support for Gainey a year ago, but
sure.
Will Wade was the sexy name. He's got the charisma. He had the head coaching experience. But you know what? Things have a way of righting the ship, righting the course, right? This is a guy that played at NC State, has had his eyes on this job for a long time, and has earned it and has paid his dues, from Greensboro. Coached, as he told us, what private school was it in Cary?
Cary Christian Academy, yeah.
He joked that he was driving around on a little bus, taking notes in his notepad. So he truly has started from the bottom and worked his way up. So this is a guy that's going to value this job and, most importantly, value this place.
And I think the fans are going to value him too, because a lot of the Wolfpack alumni who are big in the community already value him. We already saw how big the Holt brothers came out to endorse him. You have guys like Jericho Cotchery who are here, Dwayne Washington who's here. There's a locker room named after Dwayne Washington right now over at the football facility. Those guys play on the gridiron, not on the hardwood, and they know how good of a coach Justin Gainey is. And then, of course, you had all the folks who used to play basketball here, who've won national championships here, who have currently or recently played in the NBA, who are also here on hand to endorse Justin Gainey and excited for him to be here. It really shows a lot, and it really kind of brought out that family atmosphere. It does feel a little different than a year ago. Again, probably not as sexy, probably not as flashy as last year probably felt. But this one, to me, as I said earlier in a report we did on WRAL, this felt like a homecoming. This felt like a family reunion. And this is something that I thought was very interesting coming in, just with the feeling of what was here.
And he didn't make a lot of promises necessarily, which ultimately for Will Wade ended up being empty promises. Although he did make the NCAA tournament.
They did get to the NCAA tournament. He did promise that, and he did it.
Although when you lose 8 of your last 10 games, I think he was lucky to do so. But the things he did promise are the types of teams he's going to have. Yeah. And the word that he threw around that's going to be echoed for the next year is toughness. And it was a reflection of him as a player, somebody that was a guard that wasn't necessarily the most physically talented or gifted player, but that brought it every single day. And that is what he said his team is going to be defined by and the types of players he brings in. And it's not just talk, right? He's got a great track record. Like Rick Barnes at Tennessee couldn't have endorsed him more strongly this week. And, you think about another succession plan that we've just seen in the triangle. John Shire, who's stock maybe a little bit lower after the Elite Eight performance, not in our minds, but out there. But a successful succession plan, a guy that was doing a lot of the recruiting, doing a lot of the coaching behind the scenes. And I think, to our understanding, that's been Gainey at Tennessee, and he's ready to bring that here.
Yeah, and I thought that along with that, just seeing what he wants in his team, he mentioned, this is going to be a frontline heavy type of a team. And I thought it was interesting from a guard who's, honestly, you're taller than him. I was standing right there next to him, and, I'm not the tallest guy in the world. I'm 5'9", and he wasn't that much taller than me. You're taller than Coach Gainey, but he says, hey, our front line is going to be big, and that's going to be different from an NC State team this year that was very guard heavy, that couldn't rebound the ball very well, that didn't defend very well. So already you're talking about stylistically a very big difference from that. Maybe not such a big offensive team, and, we'll see what ends up happening. Maybe he does get those players. If he can keep somebody like Cole Kloer in, another North Carolina product.
Here today. Yeah.
I think he's originally from Hillsboro, plays at in Greensboro for high school basketball. He's from the area. And so I'm sure that there's already an affinity towards NC State. Now he needs to know what he needs to do to stay with NC State. That's a big-time recruit. Yeah. And he's a 4-star. And this is a guy that could have gone to many different programs around the nation, and he wanted to stay here at NC State. Will Wade got him here first, and if Justin Gainey can continue to keep him here, he was here at this press conference, which was big. If he can keep him here, that's going to be huge for NC State going forward.
Look, this is a guy that landed Nate Ament, who was, if this wasn't such a loaded draft class.
Beat Duke out.
Yeah, she's in Duke, right? So, if this was such a loaded recruiting class, I think Ament would be a little bit higher on people's radars going into the season, but certainly a potential one and done player there. So it's going to be interesting to see who he's able to bring back. I mean, there was notably absent, I thought, today was Paul McNeil. At least I didn't see him in there.
I didn't see him either.
I don't believe that Matt Abel expects to be back next season, but things could change. And who else is going to be back on the staff? Assistant GM Patrick Stacy not going with Will Wade to LSU. He was here today. Could he potentially be a front of the front office? Levi Watkins was here.
Yes.
Who coached under Kevin Keats, has remained in the area, has deep ties to the area and recruiting. Could he maybe be part of this staff? We're going to find out. It's going to take shape. He didn't give us a financial number, which I didn't expect him to, of what his NIL budget is going to be, but he told us it was going to be whatever it takes. And I think we saw it in there. The donor support is there.
It is.
I mean, all the big guns were in there.
It is.
Brian McMurray, who's literally whose job is named after, so is the plane. So, everybody was front row and center that needed to be from the donor community. And, they rallied around Wade a year ago. That was the name everyone was excited about. And they rallied around Gainey this time around.
Yeah, and I think it's easier to rally around him because he's such a homegrown guy, and you have all the personal connections. Like, there's even a personal connection to me. Like, growing up, we went to sister churches. Growing up, I found that out today. I didn't know that before today. It was just somebody happened to text me and said, "You knew he went to this church, right?" That church and my church always used to do some get-togethers. His church was in High Point, mine was in Greensboro, and there was always this connection. And so it's one of those things where it's just like, man, somebody like that is always going to be welcomed with open arms. Now he has to get on the floor here and produce.
Yeah.
And I think that he's going to have a little bit of a runway, right? I don't think that people are going to expect him to be top of the ACC in year one. But by year two, you better be in position to potentially beat Carolina, see who their head coach is going to be. You better be in position to possibly beat John Shire and Duke, and see what that future is going to look like. Because ultimately, that's what this job is going to be measured by, is how can you compete, not only in recruiting, but on the floor with Duke and North Carolina. How much can you compete for ACC titles, and how far can you go in the NCAA tournament? That's really going to determine his success here at NC State.
And I'm not somebody that is married to the idea that your head coach needs to be an alumni. But I think as we look around the country here and the one-year deal that this whole sport has become from the players and the coaches, that maybe there is a little bit more value placed on it. Like when you're having a revolving door of players, this idea of having a steward of your tradition.
Yeah.
We just saw that a 5-year sample size of it with Hubert Davis. It had its highs, it had its lows. The one constant was Davis's, emphasis on the tradition and what matters at Carolina. And so I think there's a benefit to that, having that here with Gainey, when you're going to be dealing with these roster turnovers every year in and year out, or, maybe a down year where they maybe were willing to stand by him a little bit more locally.
Sure.
Because he is one of their own, and one of our own, and not somebody that's just going to turn their back on Raleigh at the first, shiny new object that's there, or literally be negotiating behind closed doors for the final month of the season.
Or buying your house back in February. There were some shots being taken at Will Wade here. I'm just going to say there were some shots for sure taken.
Moral compass, I believe, was the word Boot Corrigan used.
It was all very interesting to watch, but we'll see what Justin Gainey brings. It's going to be fun to cover him and what happens here in Raleigh. Of course, Pat Walter and I will be along for the ride, and hope you guys will be along for the ride as well right here on all the platforms for WRAL.